What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 25. So I'm going to take you through how the team is shaping up, transfers, captaincy, all that good stuff as normal. I'm probably going to take at least one hit this week, maybe even two. So I'll discuss what those moves will be. But before all that, I'll quickly take you through how I did in Game Week 24. And I finally got another green arrow, 64 points. So it was a pretty decent week for me, even though I captained Haaland. Obviously, it would have been a mega week if I'd gone for Rashford instead. But it is what it is. I never really considered that. And I went from 677k to 530k. So it's still not an overall rank that I'm particularly happy with. But I guess at this point, I can't complain about finally getting a green arrow. We'll just have to see if I can kick on from there. I did make a good decision, which was playing Tarkowski over Ake, because he got 8 points and Ake only got 1. As I said, he probably wouldn't start against Nottingham Forest, and that is what happened. Laporte played instead. But because Mitrovic is just extremely frustrating and doesn't get me any points ever, he wasn't even in the squad, and so Ake ended up coming on. I guess having Ake ahead of Mings was a good thing, because Mings got 0 points against Arsenal, but it is what it is. Tarkowski would have come off the bench no matter what, because he would have been sub number 1. Rest of my defensive players just didn't do anything. Another no clean sheet for Trippier, so he only got 1 point. Gabriel, who I bought in because he's got better minutes than Ben White, just hasn't delivered since I've done that. I'm still much happier having him in my team going forward, but it'd be nice if he could actually deliver. Maybe get me one of those goals from a set piece or something like that. And Ederson, of course, why would I be shocked that Ederson didn't keep a clean sheet from Nottingham Forest's first shot on target, right? A Man City defence, honestly, I know people hate it when I say this, and I've said it before over the last couple of weeks. Ederson was not a good pick in terms of doing Kepa to Ederson for a hit. I fully get that, but he has been so unlucky to concede again from the first shot on target. But do you know what? I didn't even care, because I knew it was going to happen, because it always does. And at that point, Kepa had already lost his clean sheet, so it didn't affect me as much as it could have done. But obviously it would have been nice if Man City got that clean sheet, but it is what it is. The midfield is where things really went well. Every single player delivered. It was only 6 points for Salah, and I think given that they were already 2-0 up and then Newcastle went down to 10 men, I was hoping that he would get me a little bit more before people jumped on for Game Week 25, but at least it was another return. I said ahead of Game Week 23 that I definitely wanted to keep him for the double, and if he could match Harry Kane, I'd be happy. And over the last 2 game weeks, he's actually outscored him, so that's been even better. Rashford, of course, great at the moment, cannot stop scoring. 2 goals, onside for both of them, 15 points, happy days. Fernandes has been one of my best transfers this season. I think he's got something like 19 points, then 12. 19, then 5, then 12, then 3, then 12. So he's been brilliant. Obviously, for nearly 10 million going forward, he's quite hard to keep in my team. But for the 5 game week span I've had him, he scored about 50 or 52 points, something like that. So he's been fantastic. And then obviously the Arsenal boys delivered as well. Odegaard should have had 13 points. I don't know how he didn't score from that chance he had from Nketiah, but it is what it is. And of course, Haaland blanked. It's going to happen at times. Nottingham Forest away. He did have a pretty easy chance that he missed. Obviously, Man City only scored 1 goal. Whatever. I was never not going to captain him, so I can't really be too worried about that. So going into Game Week 25, we've got a blank and a double game week to contend with. So this will almost certainly be my bench. We've got Ward as the goalkeeper, Trippier and Rashford, who don't have a fixture this week, and then Greenwood for Leeds. Now, Leeds do have a fixture, but Greenwood doesn't get enough minutes to warrant a place in the 11. And with the transfers that I'm going to talk you through in a minute, I've got a decent way to get to 11 players. I don't need to play Greenwood as well. With Rashford, I spoke about him yesterday. For some of you, it might make sense to sell, but for me, I don't need to sell him to get a decent 11 out, and I'd rather hold him for Liverpool away in 26, Southampton at home in 27, and decide what to do with him later. I do have a bit of value tied up, so I'm cautious about at what point I may want to get rid of him from my team. It might just be that I have him for the rest of the season, I don't know, but either way I'm not going to sell him this week. And it's a similar situation with Trippier. My transfers don't really get better by selling him, and even though I'm probably going to bench him in Game Week 26, he's got Wolves at home in 27 and Nottingham Forest away in 28, so I want to keep my options open about what chips I might play later on, because I may end up free hitting in 28, but if I don't, then keeping hold of Trippier will be a good move. So he's going to stay as well. Again, again, for some of you, it might make sense to sell depending on what chips you want to play, depending on the rest of your team. But for me, it just doesn't really. Now, with Tarkowski and Gabriel, they've got a double game week. So unless they end up getting injured, I'm definitely going to keep hold of them. With Mings, I have thought about the possibility of upgrading him to Robertson and having a triple up of Liverpool, because you know I've already got Salah. I'm probably going to bring Trent in and also getting Robertson as well. But I just think, I've said this a lot now, that the attack is so much better than the defence. And don't get me wrong, I think they were a little bit unlucky to concede 5 goals last night. But ultimately, when things got tough, they collapsed. And I just don't think I want 2 Liverpool defenders in my team. And also, if Liverpool don't play in 28, then I'm stuck with those 2 players and I might get forced into a particular chip strategy. Whereas Mings, again, lets me keep my options open because Villa do play in game week 28. So I'm probably just going to hold on to him and play him this week. I think the most ideal thing for me, even though I might bring in an Everton attacker, is probably a 0-0 in that game so that Tarkowski and Mings both get a clean sheet. But let's see what happens. I don't think that is very likely. With Ederson, I've probably got to keep him one more week. I think the fact that Kepa has got Spurs away makes me a little bit more confident in doing that. I'm not against selling him at some point over the next few weeks because he'll almost certainly blank in game week 28. But unless I need the money, I don't think he's ever going to be my number 1 priority for a transfer. If I was going to sell him this week, I don't know if I would get Kepa. I think I would probably get Pickford and just back the double game week and hope that over 25, 26, 27 and 28, Pickford can outscore Kepa because they both play in 28, but obviously Kepa is home to Everton and Pickford's away to Chelsea. So Kepa's got the better fixture that week, but I think with the double this week, I'd probably go to Pickford. But as things stand, I don't need to make that transfer, so I'll probably hold on to Ederson. So my main move for defence is going to be Ake to Trent. Now, I don't have enough money to fund that. I'm going to have to make a midfield transfer, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I think Ake's time in my team has come to its end. Like, he has been awful. I don't think he's got me more than 3 points in any of the game weeks since game week 20. He even played twice in game week 20, 90 minutes in both of the games in the double, and came away with a 2-pointer. Now, the interesting thing with Ake is yesterday in Pep's press conference ahead of the Champions League, he said that Laporte's not in the squad because he's ill. So if Laporte is out, it makes Ake's chance of starting much higher against Bournemouth away. But there is, of course, always a chance that he plays Lewis on the left, which he's done already once this season, I think, Diaz and Akanji and Walker. And obviously they set up in-game when they're in possession as a back 3, and Lewis would go into midfield. So there's not even a guarantee that Ake would start against Bournemouth, and I just don't want the headache going forward. Man City will almost certainly blank in game week 28. The upgrade to Trent is just absolutely on. And I know, again, they conceded 5 goals last night, but to be honest with you, if I said this when the double got announced, if Liverpool had lost to Everton and Newcastle and Real Madrid, I would still want to bring Trent in because we're at a time when there's not a huge amount of other defenders. Shaw and Trippier are both blanking this week. I've already got an Arsenal defender in. I'm already tripled up on Arsenal as well, so I can't get a second one in. I just think going for a punt on one of the most attacking defenders in the game with Palace and Wolves in the double, Bournemouth in 27, a possible game in 28, it's just worth the punt no matter what I think about Liverpool defence. And the good thing about having Trent over someone like Gomez or Van Dijk is you have that attacking ability as well. So there's a bit more upside that even if he loses the clean sheet, he can potentially get you some attacking returns. I'm not saying that Trent is someone that I now want in my team for the rest of the season. And the double in 29 is actually quite tough for Liverpool. It's Man City away and Chelsea away. But in the short term, I'm talking 25 to 27 or 28. I just think I'm going to do it. So Ake to Trent is almost certainly going to happen. Trent will definitely be my second Liverpool player. So just before we check out the midfield, I'm going to ask you for a little bit of help. If you haven't already hit the subscribe button, it is completely free to do and only takes 2 seconds. My aim is to get 350k before the end of the season, which is the 28th of May. We're currently on 336,240, so we need 13,760. And with 14 game weeks left, that's just under 1,000 per game week. Definitely doable. If you've been enjoying the content but you haven't yet hit the button, make sure you do. Takes 2 seconds. Let's try and get 350k before the end of game week 38. So let's take a look at the midfield. Now, it's the same situation as with Tarkowski and Gabriel in that Salah, Odegaard and Saka all have a double game week this week. They should all start and get good minutes. So they're not going anywhere from my team. The only thing to think about is captaincy, and the only 2 players I'm considering are Salah or Saka. I don't want to captain a single game week player, I do want to go for someone from either Liverpool or Arsenal. And some of you might be looking at Trent, Gakpo, Darwin, Nketiah, Odegaard. They're all perfectly okay options, but for me, Salah and Saka are the best players from their respective teams. They're pretty much guaranteed to start. They should get 80 to 90 minutes, and they're both on penalties as well. After that, it gets very difficult to split them. I'm a big fan of Saka for FPL. I think even earlier on in the season, when Martinelli and Odegaard were getting as many points, if not more, for a cheaper price, I've always stuck with Saka. And I think on paper, Leicester away and Everton at home might be slightly better than Palace away and Wolves at home. I don't think there's a huge gap between those two sets of fixtures. And I guess from watching the two teams this season, the Arsenal attack has looked like it's functioned a lot better. But when you look at the underlying numbers, expected goals per 90, Arsenal do come out ahead, but Liverpool aren't that far behind. And I just do trust the Liverpool attack a lot more than maybe other people do. Don't get me wrong, defence, not so much. But when you look at the last few games, even when they went through that slump of getting no goals in 3 or 4 fixtures, they were still creating plenty of chances. So I'm not too worried there. Then if you look at them on an individual level, their expected goal involvement numbers per 90 minutes, they're both very good, but Salah does come out ahead, especially on goal threat, as he has done for most of his career as well. And I've not checked the numbers, but I'm sure if you go and look at the bookies odds, for both games in the double, I'm sure Salah is odds on to score ahead of Saka. So all that just kind of pushes me towards Salah, which is probably unsurprising to a lot of you. But I think given that they lost 5-2 to Real Madrid last night, that is going to put more people off going for Liverpool players, possibly even Salah as well. And while I don't think he's going to be a massive differential this week, I do think that his general ownership and captaincy levels will be a lot lower than they normally would be in a double game week, and it just makes me want to go for him. Do I think that he is an outright much better option than Saka? Absolutely not. And if you're going to captain Saka, he is a great choice. I would not be surprised if he outscores Salah. It might just come down to who gets the most penalties this week, but I think I've got to stick with Salah because I've held him all this time. He's got a decent double. He's probably never going to be lower owned or lower captain in a double game week for the rest of this season. So he's who I'm going to stick to. There is a chance that I switch because I do really like Saka, but I'm probably going to go for Salah and just hope it works out. I think I've put a lot on having him in my team this season. The last couple of weeks, it's gone a little bit better. He kind of owes me a big haul in the double, but let's see what happens. Outside of captaincy, we of course got transfers as well. Now, the reason Fernandes is in the team ahead of anyone else is because he is the most likely to go from my team and be transferred out. So I just wanted to show you the overall layout. I think my move will probably be this week. So Fernandes to McNeil, and that will fund me Ake to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, McNeil is not someone I want for the long term. Whoever I bring into that spot will either turn into Matoma or McAllister ahead of the double for Brighton in 27. But for this week, I don't see a huge amount of better options, and I've only got 7.6 million to spend, so I can't go to Gakpo because he's gone to 7.8. And there are some potentially good single game week players. I know some people mentioned Grealish to me, but would I be massively confident about him starting that one game he has against Bournemouth? I'm not sure I would. So I'd rather take a punt on someone with a double game week. And as I explained on the watch list video, if I get stuck with this player, Everton at least have some pretty good fixtures, a guaranteed game in 28, a guaranteed game in 32. So if I had to keep them for the long haul, I'd rather have an Everton player over a Wolves player. If it literally is just 1 week only, someone like Sarabia might be better, and I might regret not doing that, but I'm probably going to go the Everton route. I could go for a Iwobi for guaranteed minutes, but I think under Sean Dyche, McNeil's minutes are going to be pretty good. And for anyone that's watched for a while, you'll know his shirt is on my wall at the start of some videos because he got me 14 points on a bench boost once. So there is definitely some nostalgia and some kind of illogical reasons for picking him, but that's what I want to do. Sometimes in FPL, you've got to go for the fun move, and for me, that is McNeil. If I did want Gakpo instead, I would have to fund that. I'd have to find 0.2 million from somewhere. So Edison to Pickford for a 4-point hit could be the way that I do it. It would finally get rid of Edison from my team, who's been an absolute nightmare. Pickford's got the double game week this week, so it would add another fixture to my team. But I'm just not sure it's a 4-point hit that I need to take. And I also don't know if Gakpo is better than getting a different third Liverpool player in, like Robertson or Darwin Nunez instead. Obviously, he's starting to play a lot better now. He's scored in the last 2 league games. I think again, up until maybe Real Madrid scored, I thought he looked quite good again last night. But Jota and Firmino are both there, and they could take minutes off of any of the attackers. And I just think it's more likely that that happens to Gakpo than it does to Darwin. But I could be wrong. I think there is every chance that Darwin and Gakpo both start both of the fixtures in Game Week 25 and just keep coming off around the 60th minute. I just guess this way, it makes me take a hit that I don't think that I necessarily want to do. So, yeah, captaincy is probably going to be Salah. Vice-captain will definitely be Saka. Fernandes is going probably for Dwight McNeil. How did we get to this point? And then up front, it's Haaland and Mitrovic. Now, unless Haaland goes and gets injured in the Champions League, he'll definitely be staying in my squad. But as I've said, I don't want to captain a single game week player. So he's not really part of the conversation for me. Obviously, he's more than capable of scoring a hat-trick against Bournemouth, but I'll definitely captain Salah or Saka. With Mitrovic, the nightmare continues. Not only has he basically got me no points, but he is still yellow flagged. And what Marco Silva has had to say doesn't really give me much confidence. So he said it looks really a minor injury. I don't know if he'll be able to play the next game or not, but it will not be weeks or something like that. So he's not going to be out for a long time, but there's every chance that he could miss the Fulham game against Wolves on Friday. Now, obviously, we will have another press conference from Marco Silva before that game. Maybe he'll be ultra positive or something like that. But unless we get an early leak of the team, I'm probably going to have to sell Mitrovic, because even if he's in the squad, there's no guarantee that he would be starting. He might just be on the bench. So the moves that I'm looking at are getting Darwin Núñez as part of a -4. So I would still do Fernandes to McNeil. That would fund Ake to Trent, but it would also fund Mitrovic to Darwin Núñez. Now, I've already spoken about the minutes of him and Gakpo. I think the chances of either of them playing 80 to 90 minutes in both games of the double, very slim, because Klopp keeps making the same subs where he takes both of them off for Jota and for Firmino. But I think there's a good chance that they'll get 60-ish minutes, so 120 to 130 minutes in a double game week. I'm willing to take that risk, even if they've got Man United at home in game week 26. And for my team, ultimately, like if you go back to what it looks like this week, I've got Greenwood as my third forward who's always on the bench, and no matter what moves I make this week, I'm probably not going to have enough money to upgrade him to a decent forward. So even if I bring Darwin in, he's probably just a placeholder for either Tony in game week 27 for the double, or to keep him if Liverpool end up playing Fulham in game week 28. And if not, and I don't free hit, I would then sell him to like João Felix or Ollie Watkins instead. So he's not someone I intend on having long term, mostly because I'm not sure what his minutes will be like long term. But because I haven't owned him for any point this season, I don't have that thing around him where that frustration basically. Lots of people have owned him this season, hoping for big things. He's had a lot of big chances, hasn't necessarily scored them. They don't want to go back to that pain and misery. I haven't had it yet, so I'm willing to take the punt in a double. So I'm pretty sure that will be the 3 transfers that I do. And the issue for me of doing the other move, where I get Gakpo, Pickford and Trent, is I've still got Mitrovic to deal with, so that would be a -8, and I'd have to bring in someone like Ollie Watkins or João Felix, and I just think this is a better route for my team, so that's probably what I'm going to do. And this is what the team would then look like. I'd have Tarkowski, Trent, Gabriel, my 3 defenders with a double. All 4 of my midfielders would have a double: Salah, McNeil, Odegaard and Saka. So that would be, 7 doublers plus Darwin, that's 8, and I think that looks pretty good this week. I think that's going to be ahead of a lot of other people. That might hurt me down the line, because I've got no Brentford or Brighton players for double game week 27. If Liverpool don't play against Fulham in 28, I've only got 6 players there, I think, and none of them are Kepa either. So I will be behind, but I think I'm willing to take that risk when it doesn't take me too much to get to this team. So I think that's about as good as you're going to get this week. I don't think you'll see many better teams out there. You might have slightly different players. So instead of Darwin and Mings, it could be Robertson and Ollie Watkins or something like that. Obviously, some people will have Kepa, etc. But I think things look pretty good. So if I can get a little bit of luck and get a big green arrow this week, that might help me when I've got to take hits down the line. I think ultimately, no matter what chips you use, wildcard 27, free hit 28, bench boost 29, or whether you save free hit or wildcard for 29, whatever chip strategy you end up doing, you're going to have to take hits either this week, in 27, in 28, down the line, whenever it is. It's going to be very hard to manage without doing that. So that's why I'm kind of just going to go all in on Liverpool have those three. If they play in Game Week 28, great. My team is kind of well set up for that. If they don't, I'll have to reassess and decide whether to take a bunch more hits or start using my chits. But I think that's what the team is going to end up looking like. So if you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like. Hit subscribe so we can try and get towards that 350k target. And I'll catch you again tomorrow for the Game Week preview.